Hello and warm welcome to all my viewers of Breaking Barriers. Well, this is a podcast where I discuss sports, and this is the fourth season, and I'm your podcaster, Pratna Hajorika. Well, today I shall be discussing something, I would say, a statement that has come up out of emotion, I would say, by none other than a stalwart, Mr. Pulela Gopichan. And that particular statement has created quite an uproar, have raised a lot of eyebrows. So, what exactly did he meant, and why did he said something? I think yes, it was quite emotional for him. Let's find out from my guest in this episode of my podcast, Mr. Rakesh Rao, Deputy Editor of the Hindu. Thank you so much once again for joining in Breaking Barriers, and it's always a pleasure to have you in my show.
Thanks a lot, Pratna, and I'm sure you're doing well. Your show is doing superbly well, and it's always a pleasure to share this platform with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me those time. That particular statement by Mr. Gopichan is said to be the mastermind, the creator, the architect of modern Indian badminton. And such a statement coming in from Mr. Gopichan has created quite an uproar, not only in the sports media industry, but also among, guardians who believe that, their children could do really well in Olympic sports, not just badminton. What is your first reaction when you see such a statement coming up from Mr. Gopichan?
First of all, when I saw that statement where he says that if you are not financially sound, and he was addressing the Indian, middle class,
Yes.
saying that if you are not financially sound, please don't force your kids to take up sports, or else don't pursue it beyond a point. And he substantiates his line of argument by saying that not everybody is going to make it to a 200 crore, income kind of a bracket at the end of their sporting careers. But he's making a much bigger statement. He's trying to reach
Mm,
out to a very larger audience here. What he's trying to say is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. That means
mm,
education is important. You got to pursue your passion for sports, great. Be competitive as long as you possibly can, but also have another window open. If not a full door, but you need to have a window open as what you're going to do once your sporting careers get over. And he is
mm,
also talking about lack of jobs in that kind of a segment where sportsmen don't necessarily get great jobs. Or
mm.
what he actually means by saying jobs, he means financial security in the longer run. He gives you examples of Teresa and Cresto, these two doubles girls who are of course playing with two different partners. They're young, they're still looking for a job, and they don't have it. Now, what he's trying to say here, in my understanding, is that sports doesn't necessarily lead you to a good career, not necessarily in the sense that even if you are among the top ones. Now, here he is not talking about those who couldn't make it beyond a point. Those guys, he's leaving it as 99% people who don't make it. He's also talking about that 1% who
Yes.
actually make it. But his main focus is not about people who are taking up the sport and doing well at state level or national level. He's talking about international players here. Now,
Mm,
that is what is a concern because for the first time, somebody has said that even if you make it to the Indian team, he gives you examples of Sakshi Malik, he gives you
yeah,
examples of a few more other sports people, where he's
right.
saying that look, even after all this, even your best job at the end of it all is you are still be saying, yes, sir, to somebody who's at the entry level at the officer's level. Now, here it is a matter of concern because what
Mm,
he's talking about is probably that Indian sports people who have represented the country
mm,
and that too consistently well. They have played the Olympics. They have been part of India's representation for world championships and so on and so forth. Even they don't have a job worthy of their achievement.
right.
Now, this is a good point, well taken. However, there is another side to it also, where I think Gopichand could have and should have highlighted that when we talk about uh, you know, sports or sportsmen being treated in this country. Now, I mean sports persons. Look at it from the corporate point of view or the public sector. All these undertakings also need to get job out of you. They are not doing charity. Now, if you expect a Lakshya Sen or someone who's just been taken maybe a year and a half ago, they've
Mm,
got into Indian Oil after what he did at All England and what he did in the Commonwealth and so on and so forth. He's been given a job, he's young, and he'll be given periodic promotions and he'll make it to a point where at least he'll be financially secure.
Hmm.
But to say that the corporates should treat them on par with somebody who is qualified to take up that position or that job, it will be a little unfair to those corporates who are actually at least offering you a job. For instance, railways would never give you anything beyond a ticket collector's job. You know,
Yes. Yeah,
people
yeah.
like P. Usha, MD Valsamma, they all got into railways not as officers. They were India's top-notch athletes. They
Yeah,
got medals at the Asian level. They set records. They gave India a certain identity in the field of athletics.
yeah.
But when you
Absolutely.
look at the job profile, we're nowhere. Now the point is that if you have to draw a line, you have to also create posts where you give them that life of dignity without compromising on the quality of your job. Because somebody has to perform. Now, a lot of sports people need not necessarily make it big when they take up the corporate job because their sporting careers get over by 35, 40. They still have 20 years left. So,
Yes.
what do? You have to give them a job where the kind of salaries that you pay, they have to perform in accordance to that. Now, at the same time, in being fair to the sports people, you can't be unfair to those who are not from sports, who are qualified,
Yes.
who have really worked
Yes.
hard. They have cleared examinations. They have given you those periodic assessment examinations, and they have proved their worth. Now, this will always be a point of contention whether you have to, give those sports guys a little edge, or you have to train them before you absorb them at the highest level. Because I know of a lot of people who have been decategorized in all these petroleum, like all these petroleum institutions, like units or whatever,
Hmm.
where once their careers were over, after they stopped representing the country, they could continue to work at the same post, but they were asked to undergo training, orientation, to take up that responsibility. I think that is the way forward. But yes, where Gopi underlines that point and he really darkens that underline again by saying that, look, there are not enough jobs. Now, that is where we feel a
Yes.
little
Do you
concerned.
think he has brought out the darker side of Indian sports and the lives of Indian sports person once they retire after their peak?
He just kept that segment out of it. He's only
Yes.
talking about mostly
Olympic
people who have
sports.
represented the country in sports. Take cricket away, at least as far as this argument is concerned.
Yes. So, do you think he has brought out the dark reality in front of people who really, dreams that, one day my son would be a Laksha Sen or my daughter would be one day a Vinesh Fogart or a Sakshi Malik? So, what kind of an impact is this going to have on the middle class and the lower middle class families who really feel that, sports is a way of changing their lives and bringing in a change in their community?
Yeah, nothing seriously. I mean, I don't think it's going to bring about a change. It's just a very kind of a knee-jerk reaction from, like Gopichan. It's not something that we were not aware of. It's not something that educated parents are not aware of. They know it. And imagine, then he's talking about the middle class here. Now, middle class, I don't mean people who don't have enough on their table to eat. No, he's not talking about them. For them, it is still okay to find a job, and whatever that they are given, they'll accept it because they can't choose what kind of job they can get. I'm talking about the middle class. Middle class means they've had a pretty reasonable level of education, they're qualified, they are articulate, they can present their stuff in a certain way that the corporates like. That's why they are retained. Having said that, I think what he has done is he has just brought out a subject which needs to be looked at, and
Hmm.
all concerned should at least sit down and talk about it, which is a good attempt. However, looking at the kind of nation that we are, the kind of priorities that we have, I don't think this will be even become a point of discussion at a certain forum which really makes a difference. People can sit down in the comforts of their living room, talk about it for 5 minutes, and then move on. So it's a good point which is made, but I think a lot needs to be added to what he said. He's only touched on one side of it. The other side is that how do we look at sports in this country and sportsmen? Do we treat them well? Only the creamy layer. What happens to somebody who doesn't win as often? This is what I've always maintained. Like, look at badminton. Since, like Gopi Chand is part of that world, that fraternity, you look at his career. When he started off, there was no television, there was no social media, there was nothing. He worked his way up, he got what he got, and eventually, when his students like Saina, Sindhu, Kashyap, and more, when they made it big, when Gopi was no longer the player, Gopi was the coach, a guy who
Hmm.
was trying to keep the face of Indian. His academy kids were doing exceptionally well. That is when television channels, for example, broadcasters, decided to beam the World Badminton Federation's event to your living rooms every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Any Super Series tournaments one could see, and Indians being in the top eight could always be watched from the quarterfinal onwards. Now that seeing your champions perform, that is what broadcasters did to help badminton. The same cannot be said about squash or table tennis because we never had those big names competing at the top 10 or top 8, but badminton gained from that. So visibility helped Sindhu, Saina, and many others to become household names. And they got honored, they were invited to places, even to inaugurate showrooms. You will find Saina, Sindhu, Kashyap, Shrikant, they all were there. But what I'm trying to say here is visibility helps. Now, in contrast, you look at somebody like a Pankaj Advani. No Indian has won more than 25 world titles, official world titles like that guy. But if he takes to the street tomorrow, if he tries to raise a noise or something, nobody would even recognize it. Because when he was winning, you didn't see him win. There are not visuals available to see him every year he wins a world title or maybe more than one every year. But do you have the visuals? Have you seen him winning? No. But you have seen Sindhu win. You have seen our cricketers perform. You have seen some of our, Olympians and so on and so forth perform, whether they win or not. Poor chess players, poor, like billiards and snooker guys who have done India proud. You haven't seen the visuals so often. Like Anand has won the world title 5 times. Did you see him win? Not many. It's only in recent times that you saw Gukesh, you saw Pragya, you saw Nihal, and so on. That gang is benefited by the advent of streaming platforms, YouTube, and every game is being shown live, every move is shown in real time, and so on and so forth. You can see their expressions, you know the pain which they go through, you remember, recall, and share it. Now, all these things have benefited these guys, not so much Pankaj Advani. We still feel that the guy who should have been the most celebrated Indian is still finding his feet and saying people still don't recognize me. That is because he has not been seen winning despite winning more than 25 world titles.
Why do you think Mr. Gopichan, after being there in a circuit for so many years now, decades now, he has given India and the rest of the world so many superstars in in the name of badminton. So why do you think suddenly he has come up with such a statement, or why do you think he became so emotional talking about, he said कि जब कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स के मेडलिस्ट और एशियन गेम्स के मेडलिस्ट मेरे पास आते हैं और बोलते हैं कि सर कहीं पे जॉब में लगेगा क्या जॉब मिलेगा क्या so then he became very emotional and he was almost in he was in tears. So why do you think suddenly he became so emotional about this particular the issues that's surrounding the Indian sporting industry?
Well, see, Gopi will choose his time. It's not that he didn't know this earlier. He chose his time to speak when he wanted to. Now, it's very difficult to get under his skin to understand why he's saying it in 2025. He could have made this statement when he became a chief coach in 2006. He could have
Absolutely.
said this when he had the first
Seen
Olympic
everything
medals.
as a player, as
But
a coach, isn't it? He has seen everything
anytime,
as well
anytime.
as a
Now,
coach.
it's up to him. I mean, you can't force him to say something which he knew or which we assume that he knew. And I mean, when he should speak, we can't really decide. It's for him. So, if he has chosen February 2025 to make that statement, so let's stay with it and see whether what he has said can make a difference to a larger group. it's good for us to sit and talk about it, but I still feel that people in authority, can they see the point that he's trying to make? Now, Gopi has been part of so many consultative committees, decision making committees for years now.
Hmm.
Award ceremony, I mean, awards jury, he was part of it. Decision making, long term planning. Gopi has been the blue eyed boy of Indian administration for more than a decade and still
Right.
counting.
Hmm.
So Gopi could have made that difference when he was inside a committee. He could have made this difference instead of going to the media, or when he was asked by that journalist and he responded it. He could have raised it at multiple forums and people who would have taken decision. Like if you raise it at a meeting, at a meeting which is high powered, where the minister is there, the SAI DG is there, and you give something in writing and say, this is not for people's consumption, it's for people like me and you to sit here and take a decision and like make a difference. Once we make a difference, once we take an action, then we can actually talk about it. These are mere words. These are, I mean, it's a good point which he's making, but are the authorities listening? Or the other part is, perhaps Gopi has already mentioned it to the authorities, nothing moved. So he has now come out with that same kind of, I mean, same kind of, what should I say, a point to be discussed or debated or to be looked at a different forum. So if I give Gopi the benefit of doubt that, all right, he must have tried his best at all levels, at all forums, because he has access to everybody from the vice president of this country to the prime minister of this country. Not so much, but there was a time when Venkaiah Naidu used to be there. He had direct access to him because they both belong to the same state. Now, when it came to being in touch with people in authority, Gopi was unmatched.
Hmm.
Everybody took it as a matter of, pride to be seen with him. I'm talking about the politicians, the bureaucrats, and more. So if he had that kind of influence, he could have made a difference. Perhaps they didn't listen to him. They only heard him, never bothered to listen to
So, but again, going back to some of the points that he made when he said that, there's no security, people like the Commonwealth Games medalists, the world champions, they're still looking for jobs, for looking for security, and most importantly, looking for some amount of respect in the society and in their workplace. So, do you think somewhere, the society, the Indians have really failed in giving back what the athletes have given to the country?
Not in all cases, but yes, you'll find a good number of cases where the people didn't get what they deserved. And that is life. I mean, not everybody gets what they deserve. That's the way this entire cycle works, be it sports or even, a life without sports. Unpredictability is certain. I mean, the only thing that is, consistent is inconsistency. So even here we see the same thing. However, we have to be fair when we look at this side. We can't be emotional only for sports people. Me and you have been associated with this long enough to understand that we'll always stand by the sports people and we can justify what we're saying. But when you take a stand like that, where somebody else has to pay for what you have done, to recognize what an athlete has done, and to sustain it over a period of time, you also have to answer one question. If that organization, that institution, or even that individual turns around and says, what is in it for me? You know, if an organization says, okay, I'm going to give Sakshi Malik the kind of salary that she can't even expect. She had only heard about it, but I'm going to do it. Now, how am I going to use her services? I'm not here for charity. There is a cost and a payoff ratio in life. So if a company is paying a certain cost, it has every right to expect a payoff. Now, are these people worthy of giving that company the payoff? As long as they're playing, as long as they're seen, as long as they can be used as brand ambassadors, everything is fine. But the moment you stop being that, a company will obviously ask, okay, another 2 years we can just pay you salaries because you're not competent to handle the kind of responsibilities that you have to handle as an officer in our company. Now you got to be fair there. I mean, it's very easy to become emotional and say, no, 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 you have to, because they have done enough for the country till 35. Now you take care of them for the next 25 years or more. Not fair. So here, that sports person in question will have to equip himself or herself with, with some kind of skill sets to be useful to that company. Now, this is where I'm saying orientation is the key. You have
Right.
to tell the sportsman, look, your life, your career spans only up to a certain number of years. What next? Are you ready
Right.
for it? This is where I think Gopi is trying to take the focus, and he's trying to say, listen, watch this part of your life.
Hmm.
If sports people are charging appearance money when they are still at their peak, one section of sports lovers says it's not wrong, because this is what they are going to bank on once their active careers get over. Some people say, why should they charge? They should be doing charity. They should be doing this, that, and the other. So you'll hear arguments for both sides. But
Yes. Yes. Yes.
here, I think what Gopi is trying to say is
Hmm.
that you have to be careful. You need to have those skill sets. It's like minimum degree or whatever. So this is where a lot of people, like especially in a game like chess, I've realized a lot of people give up studies because they're so much into it. And chess is an expensive sport. There is this myth that chess is not expensive. Chess is pretty expensive because you are not going to sit at home and play. Of course, you don't have to pay on equipment. I mean, you don't have to spend on equipment. You don't have to pay for a lot of other things, but the entry fees is exorbitant. Your travel and the tournaments last more than a week. So you have to look after yourself and all those expenses. And plus, when you are young, you have to be accompanied by a parent and so on and so forth. So chess doesn't have the glamour. It involves a lot of expenditure. So a lot of people give up on their studies.
Hmm.
Now a lot of schools have now come forward and said, listen, be a student of our school, represent us. We will take care of your academics. We'll give you extra classes, special attention, so that you can clear the school examination. Very few schools, and most of them happen to be in Chennai.
Yes. Very few. Very few.
Now, now
In
expect
fact,
even
in
schools to
Guwahati,
get payoff
yeah.
out of what they're doing.
In fact, in
Vellama
Guwahati,
will get
lot of
payoffs because they have had Prague, they've had Gukesh. I mean, you have the creamy layer of world chess there. I mean, that is so unusual, but that is an exception which actually proves the rule, right? So you have to understand that it's a wide question. It's not something that we can just answer in 20 minutes. I think a lot of factors will come in. Some of them we are going to talk about, some of them we are not. We won't be able to even fleetingly go anywhere close to that because it's a huge question out there. So you need to look at all aspects and then find a way out.
like you said, having skills right after you retire from your professional sports. In fact, Gopi said that what after you are done with your
Yeah.
sport. So, do you think there is a need to kind of, when we talk about skill development, or if not, you are a graduate, or you've not done your studies, or you've not done your graduation, what next for the players then? What should be they doing?
See, that is exactly what he's trying to say, that you need to have skill sets. I mean, unless you have basic education in place, unless you know that at least you have a minimum degree, that is what the parents' concerns remain in India. They always say, खेल को ठीक है, मगर पढ़ाई के साथ साथ करते रहो. Gopi is
Ah.
saying exactly that. That
Mhm.
you need to be qualified because it's a competitive world out there. You
Hmm.
cannot be given certain weightage for your sporting achievements and be put in a position of responsibility where somebody who's far more able is competing with you and you become unfair to him. That's not fair. Now, this is where a sportsman will have to be trained. He has to undergo that orientation course for him to get equipped with certain skill sets to handle that responsibility. That's one way out. Now, we are looking at looking at those who have already represented in India. Okay, now we are not talking about the failed sportsmen or the not so successful sportsmen. Now,
Right.
imagine railways have been hiring people left, right, and center for years, and they have done yeoman service
Yeah.
when it comes to looking after the Indian sportsmen at that level, not the creamy layer, the second level or the third level. Now, I know of examples from the wrestling world, people who have played in the national championship, maybe got lucky to get to represent India in the Commonwealth Championship, not the Commonwealth Games, but the Commonwealth
Hmm.
Championship level. And in Commonwealth, at the Commonwealth level, Indian sportsmen have done very well because there's hardly any competition. So even as an age group champion in Commonwealth Championships, they have won medals for India. But they are not big enough or great enough to go beyond a certain point. Railways gives them a job. They're all wrestlers, imagine, boxers and wrestlers, especially wrestlers. What do? Once their careers get over, they have to go and work. They haven't even cleared class 10. Even if, because I think the minimum is class 10, for some reason they get through class 10 with some help. What happens to them next? Because they have been given class 4 jobs. Now they are frustrated because their careers haven't gone anywhere beyond a point. Then what do? They are hired as people who can be used during elections. Haryana. Haryana is
Hmm.
known for
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
lot
Hmm.
of people, and that is why if you go beyond this, I'll just touch upon the case of Sushil Kumar. People around Sushil Kumar were those who were not Sushil Kumars, but they were wrestlers, got in closer because they couldn't do anything else. Now they
Hmm.
were all, and such people are also hired by certain banks for the case of recoveries and other things. Their services are used because they don't have to go and hit people, they don't have to harm people. Their
Hmm.
presence is they'll go to the person who's supposed to be a defaulter. Their job is to just go and stand like a muscle man there. Their
Hmm.
services are used in a way that they wouldn't like it to be used. What do? I mean, they also have to run their household. They have to put some food on the table. Now, this is where the economic side of it comes in. The socio-economic reasons will seep in, and then the entire debate will take a very different direction. So coming back to what Gopi said, I think he's talking about those who are not failed sportsmen. They're successful sportsmen. The country has recognized them. But what next? If you are not educated enough, if you don't have deep pockets, if you don't have good savings, you're likely to suffer. I think that is where he's trying to, hammer in that point to make a larger section understand their problems or their state after a certain stage of their life. So give credit to like Gopi for at least raising it,
Yes.
irrespective of when he's raising it. But I think he
Yeah.
has given some food for thought.
That is the reason I think a lot of people, any place I go, what do you do? When I say I'm a sports journalist, अच्छा आप एक जर्नलिस्ट हो स्पोर्ट्स करते हो पॉलिटिकल नहीं करते हो so this is the kind of psyche a lot of people have and also because I belong to a family where there are sports persons my father's family they are all into cricket and the fourth generation is playing Ranji Trophy for the
Yeah.
state married to a sports person and nurturing a shuttler and I get that vibe from a lot of guardians around his school, my son's school guardians that Acha Ridhan is only into sports. Acha padhai kab karte? He doesn't go to tuition. So this is the kind of ambience that we have, that we live in. And a lot of people who are very close to me, my relatives, they say, Acha Ridhan ko na tuition mein dal do, padhai mein zyada dhyan dene ke liye bolo. बैडमिंटन खेल के क्या होगा यार this is the kind of practical questions or queries and their eagerness that comes to me as a mother and this is very frightening at times I must tell you.
They are not entirely wrong. That is what I'm trying to say. That if you become emotional, yes, you are just not going to listen to what your friends tell you. And going to tuition has become a part of your life because you think without tuition you can't make it. When
Yeah.
I was young, if you are taking tuition, you were looked down upon. People used to
Yes.
just look down on you and say, oh my God, he's so weak, he needs tuition. Today, if you don't take tuition, people will say, how are you going to be among the top three in the class?
Yeah,
Because
that
you
is
don't
what
take
is
tuition.
happening because we've not put our son into any tuition. So this is the kind of reactions that comes in because I believe it's very important for them to use their own brain rather than spoon feed what is
Absolutely.
available in the market.
Yeah.
So
So
this
I
is the
think
sad
Gopi,
reality.
Gopi has tried to, throw some light on that side, saying that, look, don't go blindly into this. Secure yourself. Make sure that you have something to fall back on and pursue sports. I think a lot of people need not agree with it because a lot of people feel that you have to go full throttle. He's only cautioning you there. He's not setting a template
Not
for you
saying that
that this
don't
is
play. Yeah, he's not saying don't play, but at least have plan B
he's
and
only
plan C.
cautioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that, at a time when India is planning to host the Commonwealth Games just as a recce for the Olympics to be held in the near future. So how do you see these kind of statements coming in from Mr. Gopi Chand affecting the policymakers or the kingmakers or the decision makers? Do you think any kind of changes would happen in the days to come?
No, it's a firm no from me. I know we have had this conversation in the past. This is just a it's just a knee-jerk reaction. It will stay as a part of your discussions momentarily. People will forget this and move on because there are other important aspects according to them, and this is not a priority. It is for individual parents to take a call. The government can't decide what they have to do with their children because see, our government, no matter which party, government of India, I'm talking about, it cannot prioritize sports in this country because you have other important things in this one. You know, रोटी कपड़ा मकान नहीं है, पीने का पानी नहीं है भाई.
Hmm.
Even after 78 years of independence, we are still. I mean, there are households in this country that are still waiting for clean drinking water. And you
Yes.
suddenly say, no, no, no,
No.
sports should become a point of discussion. No, it can't be. You talk about building infrastructure. Building of infrastructure is now limited to states which is opting to host the national games.
Hmm.
Because that is where they get the grant. They want to build infrastructure, which is a good move. Yes. But what happens to that infrastructure? Now, imagine in the last 5 years, we've had four national games. Go back to the first of the lot and go and check the infrastructure built 5 years ago, which was readied 5 years ago. Go and see whether it's being maintained or it's being used to the optimum. I think I have my doubts if a lot of states have it the way it should be. Building of
No.
infrastructure is all fine because you
Yes.
get the necessary funds only when you tell the state and the center that look, this is what we've got, we have the right to host the games. Because from 1980 onwards, ever since we had the first national games or the trial games, it started on the eve of the 1982 Asian Games. Thereafter, we started this, and which was a good move. The whole idea of the government was to help different states build infrastructure. Okay. So even after so many years, even after close to 40 years, we are still at the same plane. States are busy building infrastructure in the name of national games. And this was one event which was postponed 5 times before the first edition could be held. It was always like that. You see the number of postponements at different states have been
Yes.
either forced to take it
Absolutely.
or opted it by choice. And it's only in the last few years, thanks to the impetus given by this government, that you are seeing national games being held as per schedule. Now, besides this, if you start spending on infrastructure, start spending on training, start spending on hosting of events with the government funding, not the private sector's, aid or anything. No, there will be an uproar. People will say you should be spending money on like welfare schemes, on villages, and you are spending money on urban kind of like planning. What about the rural
Hmm.
country? Blah blah. 70% or more live in the urban sector, whatever it is. So this argument will actually move in a very different direction. So bringing you back to where we all started from, I think it was a great start, but it's not going to last for too long. People are going to talk about it, feel a certain way about it, and they'll move on because this can't be a priority.
Absolutely. Let's hope that more and more senior players they come up, at least sit down and chalk out some plans, Plan B and Plan C for some of our players who really, really deserve a lot of things that they have done for the country. On that very note, once again, I would like to thank you for giving us such wonderful insight on the comment made by Mr. Pulela Gopikran. I really appreciate you giving me such important deep insights and giving me your time. Thank you once again for speaking your heart out.
Thank you so much. And well, as I said, it's always a pleasure being on this kind of platform. And as I've always maintained, you continue to do some wonderful work and stay at it, keep at it. God bless.
Many thank you. I really appreciate your comments on me. I think it's really important for a person like me who's learning every day from stalwarts like you. Thank you. Really appreciate you joining.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.